Hello, Cleveland, and welcome to another edition of the DawgLand podcast. I am your host, Jackson McCurry. Joining me on today's show is none other than the DawgLand's draft guru, draft expert, whatever you want to call him, Alex Hale. Alex, how's it going, man? Welcome. Thanks for coming on the show.
Man, yeah, absolutely. Always glad to be here. I guess I've become Mel Kiper here all of a sudden. I don't know. I prefer to be Matt Miller or actually Dane Brugler of the site.
Yeah, I'd rather you be those guys too, as much as I appreciate Kuiper and what he's done for the draft. I prefer to you as our Matt Miller, our Dane Brugler, our Daniel Jeremiah, all the good young up and coming draft experts that
They're all
don't get
awesome.
yeah, they don't get nearly the praise that Kuiper gets, but much love to all those guys. But before we get to the draft, and that's what we're going to talk about, I think mostly on this podcast. Give everybody a free agent update, what's been going on. The last time I sat down to record, the Browns had just got John Johnson. First of all, before we get to anything else, Alex, your thoughts on the Browns' reported agreement with free agent safety John Johnson?
Love it. Absolutely love it. This is one of the best safeties in football right now. Fits perfectly into Joe Wood's scheme. Now you give him three safeties to work with, makes him run that defense that he wants to run. You're getting athletic playmakers in your secondary, which has been missing on this team. And I will say, and I know it sounds crazy, I still wouldn't rule out a safety in this draft. And the more you have for Joe Woods to work with, he can create a rotation and keep these guys fresh, keep them going. And man, this defense, it's looking better now than it was a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about it with Jack Duffin last night, and he agreed that, drafting a safety, especially with one of our first 3 or 4 picks, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. Maybe not at 26, like, some of the mock drafts have projected the kid out of TCU, but maybe at 59. Yeah, Trayvon Morig. But maybe at 59 or 89 or 91, I could definitely see them taking a safety because depth isn't a bad thing to have, and especially at a relatively low cap number. And because you don't know exactly what you're going to get out of Grant Delpit, and Ronnie Harrison has the injury history. So it would not shock me if they take a safety early on in the draft.
Yeah, definitely. With Delpit's injury, it's an Achilles injury. I overheard this on actually Andy Lytle's podcast, the Not the Same Old Browns podcast. But I was listening to him, and it was a great point. Those Achilles injuries, they're not easy to come back from. So it's not like I don't believe in Delpit. It's like, what am I really getting out of you long term? It's more so, look, we believe in you. We believe in your talent. But look, we might get 2 to 3 years out of you. And that may be it, because an Achilles is very damaging in any sport. It's not just football. Basketball, that's the killer injury. That's the career ender. And in baseball, gosh, for certain players, that's a backbreaker.
Yeah, definitely. But since, the last time we sat down to do the DawgLand podcast, there's been a flurry of free agent moves, and more specifically at the edge position, which the Browns, there was a position a lot of people were looking at them to make a big splash in. Carl Lawson came off the board. He went to the Jets. Trey Hendrickson went off the board. He went to the Bengals. Bud Dupree went to the Titans, and an absolute overpay that I don't think is nearly getting talked about enough. The media just seems to be drooling over that fact that he went to Tennessee for the money he did. And then
coming off injury, no less.
Yeah, coming off injury, and they gave him $85 million. Now, of course, all that's not guaranteed, but $16.5 million for a player that, when you look into the metrics, he's not worth that much money.
No, he's always been a solid pass rusher. He's never been the guy people thought he was going to be when he came out of college. Like everyone, I remember that draft very well. He was one of those guys that I kept pounding the table for the Browns to get, because we were running that Pettin 3-4, and I was like, oh man, you get Bud Dupree in this defense, and oh my gosh, watch out. Then they take Cam Irving, and I'm like, watch the Steelers draft this guy 2 picks later. Steelers pick him, and I'm on a draft show. And I'm like, son of a gun.
Yeah, I mean, I'm baffled at that contract, but those guys went off the board, and there's still some good names out there. Jadeveon Clowney, Melvin Ingram, Alden Smith, Tyus Bowser went off the board earlier today. I don't know how much interest the Browns had in him, but the edges are starting to come off the board. But Alex, I feel like the Browns are playing this perfectly. They're not overpaying for anybody. They're going to let the market settle. And I feel like they're going to find some value signings here in the next coming days.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Takk McKinley, I think, is high on their board if everything checks out, especially price. Alden Smith, I forgot about him. Like, he was looking solid for Dallas. Oh, man, if he's really coming back to form, please go get him. Just put him in the right culture scenario. Put him opposite Myles Garrett. And oh, my God, you're going to get a value right there. I mean, he showed he still has it.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean, you put him opposite Myles Garrett, I think teams are going to be terrified of what you offer. I mean, Melvin Ingram would be a solid signing. Clowney, good run stopper. But again, it goes back to a theme that we're going to probably be talking about a lot because they didn't get those premier guys. And while I believe it was smart because you're paying Myles Garrett about $20 million a year, and you're going to pay these guys $15 million a year, you're going to invest about $35 million on two guys on your line. That's not feasible even with the cap going up. You don't do that. That's irresponsible, and they know that. So how about you get a couple of guys on 2-3 year deals that are fairly reasonable, then in the draft where the tier 2 of pass rushers, which honestly, looking at it, there is no tier 1. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I've tried on Gregory Rousseau. The only one that's come close, and we'll get into it later, is Kwity Paye out of Michigan. He's my defensive end number 1 on the board. He's probably closest to tier 1 we got. But even then, it's like, is he really? I mean, you can make a case for any of these guys being edge number 1 on my board. The tier 2, the second, third round group, you are going to find people there, just solid players, maybe a guy you can develop into a superstar pass rusher. The talent is there in the mid rounds, and the Browns are sitting really pretty at 26 to potentially get one of those guys early on.
Yeah, I think this was the mindset of Andrew Berry coming into free agency anyway. It's like if he would have been able to get Lawson or Hendrickson at the right price, he would have jumped all over it. The thing was, and I think Ngakoue kind of set the tone when he got $13 million from the Raiders.
He did. He didn't deserve that.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at the projections, he got under what people thought he was going to get, but I think that kind of set the tone. Like if Ngakoue is getting this and he's only... I mean, he hasn't had, I think he had 1 double-digit sack season so far, and he's not, he struggles against the run. You're looking at Carl Lawson, who only had 5.5 sacks last year, but got after the quarterback big time. I think he had 32 hits. Like, the money was going to start coming for these guys. And I feel like Andrew Berry was like, these are our offers. We're not getting into a bidding war. If you can take it or leave it, you can come to Cleveland, compete for a Super Bowl, or go get your money elsewhere. I think that was the mindset. He's letting the market settle. And, if he can get Clowney or Ingram on a 1 or 2 year deal, like you said, while also adding someone in the draft with one of the first few picks, I feel like you feel really good about that, especially when the Browns are more focused on upgrading the secondary because, and people won't admit this, there's people are starting to come around. Coverage is a lot more important than pass rush, especially in Joe Woods' scheme.
Yes, it is. Coverage stacks are real. Like, those are real things in the NFL. So you just have your guys cover receivers, make sure the quarterback has no options downfield, and either A, it buys your defensive ends, defensive tackles enough time to get to the quarterback, or B, it forces the quarterback to either make a run or, ideally, get sacked or throw the ball out of bounds.
And talking about them upgrading in coverage, there's conflicting reports out there. Josina Anderson said last night that the Browns were in the mix for Shaquille Griffin. Lane Adkins is kind of retracting that on Twitter. But he ended up signing with Jacksonville, got, I think, close to $15 million a year on average.
That was ridiculous.
That's another overpay because, and Shaquille Griffin's good, but
he's good, but he ain't that much.
Yeah, he ain't that good. But, there's still corners out there. A lot of them are slot corners, which that market was deep. Outside corner wasn't that deep. It was Griffin and William Jackson, and there hasn't been a lot of buzz on Jackson. So I would think that if they're looking for an outside corner, that's another thing where, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, they're going to have to go to the draft for. But I do expect the Browns to add some type of slot corner here in the coming days, whether it's a Brian Poole, Mike Hilton, Troy Hill, K'Wan Williams. There's names out there and guys that could come in and produce at the slot corner position.
Definitely, for sure. There's talent everywhere in terms of, depth in terms of cornerback in this free agent class. But I will say, again, it's almost a perfect draft for the Browns. Again, we'll get into the draft later. But the middle, like the second day options at corner, granted, if a J.C. Horn is to fall to 26, you don't think twice, you take him. But just some of these options of Eric Stokes, Greg Newsome, Asante Samuel, Tyson Campbell, and that's just only a handful. Mel Fonwu, Elijah Molden, these are some solid guys that you're going to be able to get in the second, third round that are going to be able to be starters in the NFL. So again, if you're the Browns, for what you need, the draft has so many options for you, especially 26, where the draft's going to fall right to you, most likely.
Without a doubt. And let's go ahead and just jump into the draft talk. You released a mock draft last week over at the DawgLand.com, which I definitely recommend everybody to check out. And the tagline for it was "Let's get crazy." And 1.0 was crazy, but then you turned it up a notch and you threw another quarterback trade in there, and I think everybody kind of knows what we're talking about. Like he had Deshaun Watson getting traded in the first one. I think you had Sam Darnold, correct me if I'm wrong, but then you threw the other name that's getting a lot of buzz. I'm just kind of waiting for this trade to happen, and you threw it in the mock draft. It's Russell Wilson, and it seems like we are heading towards that, a Russell Wilson trade, which is crazy as it sounds because of the dead cap hit, because of why would the Seahawks do it. But in this mock, Alex, which I'll let you have the floor here in a moment. Yeah, you had no choice just because you got to get crazy. You got to get fun with it. You have the Seattle Seahawks trading Russell Wilson, but it's not to the team everybody thinks it would be. So I'll let you have the floor. Let's talk about this right out the bat, the Russell Wilson trade. Go ahead and take it, Alex.
So I actually put in there wrong. I'm so used to saying Oakland, not Vegas. I apologize in that. We'll probably have to go in and fix it. But man, Vegas. Is there one team? That's what I kept asking myself. Is there one team that will panic because he's on the market and you feel the division around you is getting so good that you can't keep up with the quarterback you have? Now, could that be Chicago? Yes, I do think it can be Chicago. But who is the one owner in the NFL, not named Jerry Jones because he extended Dak Prescott? And full disclosure, before Dak got extended, I'm going to actually pull back the curtain. The original big trade of Mock 2.0 was the following. Dak Prescott to the Houston Texans, along with number 10 and a first rounder next year to Houston in exchange for Deshaun Watson. And then Houston would trade with New England at 15, and New England would get Mac Jones. So everything I do, there has to be logic to it. So, and it made sense to me. It was like, okay, you could swap those two out, get first round picks. Houston doesn't lose a beat in terms of talent. They can get X player. I think that I had him getting Caleb Farley at that point. And then the more and more I broke it down, I was like, it makes sense to do. So with Russell, the more and more I thought about it, I was like, do I want to put in the Russ trade for fun? And then I said, yeah, I really do. Then the next question is, does it make sense? Then I remembered Mark Davis, son of Al. Just win, baby. If he thinks Russell Wilson's the guy that they're missing, and oh, by the way, there's a head coach there that believes in just win, baby, in John Gruden, who I bet would love to work with Russell Wilson. They have the receivers. to make it work. They have Darren Waller, a weapon he never had in terms of just the versatility of moving him inside at the tight end position, outside in the slot. Sure, DK Metcalf can do some of this, but not like Darren Waller. He has a better running game in Oakland. They may think, oh, well, if we get Russell Wilson, no one's going to be able to stop our offense. So, yes, I have Oakland in this mock, and I think, not Oakland, Las Vegas. Sorry, I can't get used to it. It's still weird.
It's okay. I still say the Chargers are in San Diego.
See, I've adjusted that, but it's been a couple years. So,
right.
But here's the trade: 17 overall, with also their next 3 first-round picks, along with Derek Carr. It's going to take someone uber aggressive to do it, and that's Mark Davis. The more I thought about it, I was like, they would totally pull the trigger on this. And this is something, if you're Pete Carroll, you're sitting like, I can work with Derek Carr. I got DK Metcalf. I've got Tyler Lockett. I can use this and build my team around it. And I'll be a contending team next year. Would I be a Super Bowl winner? Maybe. We'll see. If I'm a good coach, sure. Yeah, I believe in myself. I've won a ring. And God forbid, I think that team could still make the playoffs, as crazy as it sounds. A Derek Carr-led Seahawks team with an O-line, that team could win the NFC West. There's your hot take right there. They're that good everywhere else if they keep everything intact, which now with Shaquille Griffin, granted this was maybe before free agency, okay, maybe not as much. And I had him taking Micah Parsons, building a force with Bobby Wagner, which I'm like, well, good luck. I mean, those guys will be all over the place. And they would create such a dynamic force that, man, Seattle would be sitting really pretty, with Derek Carr, their weapons, and now building a defense like that. Oh, by the way, you have their next 3 first-round picks as well. So you could get a future quarterback, or if Derek Carr shuts haters up, well, gee, you've got a quarterback, and no one's the wiser. So, yes, the deal made sense to me. Do I think Vegas is the best option? Maybe. I still think from a winning standpoint, if done correctly, Chicago's the better fit. But, man, if you got into Vegas and they're just aggressive enough to do it, I'm like, how does it not make sense to pull that trigger? So I did it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bold, crazy trade. I just can't, I feel like Derek Carr is probably the most and this might be far-fetched to say, I feel like he's the most disrespected quarterback in the league. He is. Oh, because he's been good. Everything around him's been trash. You get rid of Khalil Mack, you get rid of Amari Cooper, those guys would help Derek Carr put the Raiders over the top. Maybe not Super Bowl, but they would be a consistent playoff team, I think. I just think Mayock and Gruden have been over their heads since they got there. And I feel bad for Derek Carr. And sometimes I wish he would go somewhere else just because so he can prove to people, yeah, I'm good. It's just these guys are holding me back. But, I mean, Russell Wilson going to Vegas would make sense because he wants to go to a bigger market, because he's frustrated with Seattle's direction. I mean, that's why he's mentioned some of these big market teams like Chicago, like New Orleans, like Dallas, like Vegas. I mean, these are and it would help his wife's career, which it seems to be she's trying to revitalize. Mm-hmm. I mean, it would make sense. I feel like I'm with you. I think Chicago would be a better spot for him, and it sounds like he really wants to go there. So it'd be interesting to see if that materializes here in the next few weeks. But getting back to your mock draft, Alex, let's go up to the top. I mean, you have Trevor Lawrence still going number 1 to Jacksonville, not a surprise. Number 2, and I don't know if I don't have number 1 in front of me, but you have Zack Wilson going this time to the Jets. And there's been a lot. I mean, it's a lot of momentum going his way in the last couple of weeks. And, you hear people talking about him, comparing him somewhat to Patrick Mahomes. And, so much so, I know Chris Sims has him ranked above Trevor Lawrence, but like, what do you think of Zack Wilson personally? Do you buy all the hype surrounding him right now? Is it just because they need something to talk about in regards to the draft? Or do you think he could be this next Mahomes type in terms of talent and what he could potentially bring to a team such as the New York Jets?
He is worth all the hype. This guy, I've said it in this one. I actually think Wilson could be better at the end of the day.
Wow.
His arm talent is unbelievable. He throws one of the best deep balls I've seen. His footwork is, I've said it, it sounds weird. His footwork is like a ballerina. Like, it's the best footwork I have ever seen from a quarterback in all my years of doing this. Now, does that mean anything? It kind of does. Is it the end all be all? No. I mean, Marcus Mariota had some of the best footwork I had seen, and it just didn't adjust to the NFL level. Now, that might be more so of traits in terms of one, like Mariota, he was more running quarterback, more option based. Zack Wilson is more going through his progressions, making the right throw, making the play. He has shown time and time again, this guy is arguably the best quarterback in this draft. The ball placement's there, the accuracy, the arm strength, everything you're looking for. And he has just enough athletic ability to extend plays. The guy is for real. I mean, I'm not saying he's Mahomes. In terms of my evaluation, no one will ever be as good as Pat Mahomes on tape. Mahomes, I've never given out a perfect score in terms of just from what I've seen and just calling him a perfect prospect. Mahomes was as close to you as you were going to get. I thought it was like a 99 out of 100 in terms of perfection. Did I think he needed time to adjust to the NFL? Yes. And look how that worked out. Zack Wilson, I don't think he really needs the time. And I think if he goes to someone like the Jets, he's going to have pieces around him protecting him, allowing him to adjust on the fly. And this kid's improv skills are just unbelievable. Like, I've seen him make broken down plays into big plays like he's Johnny Manziel. Now, not to give anyone Johnny flashbacks, but like, the kid is that good. I rarely go on one-year wonder kids. This is the first time I'm actually sold on a one-year wonder kid. That speaks volumes to my rules, and that speaks volumes to how highly I think of Zack Wilson. I see it.
In terms of going to the Jets, and they obviously have a new head coach, Robert Saleh, new offensive coordinator, Mike McDaniel. If McDaniel's bringing the Shanahan scheme to New York, which by all accounts he probably will, because that's all he's ever learned, because he's been under Shanahan going back to the Cleveland days. Do you think Wilson is a good fit for the zone blocking scheme type offense that McDaniel's is likely going to incorporate with the Jets?
I think so, but the more important thing is who's the running back. That's the bigger thing. And that's the one thing I figured out with these Shanahan schemes, whether it be, Mike Shanahan back in Denver with the success of the Brian Griese and Orlando Scary era, beyond just, Terrell Davis and John Elway, because those guys were just Hall of Fame talents. We talk about, Kyle Shanahan and the success of, even what he did in Cleveland. It was started with Isaiah Crowell. And then San Francisco, it starts with, is their running game working? When their guys were injured this past year, they were toast. So for the Jets, it's more imperative in terms of the system they're running to get the running back right, to take the pressure off the quarterback. The reason why Jimmy G only has so much success in San Francisco and why guys like Brian Hoyer had only so much success is they aren't gifted as passers. Jimmy G is a good field general. He can run any scheme effectively and put you in a position to win. Is he the guy that puts you over the hump? No. Was Brian Hoyer? Sorry, Lima. No. That's not the case.
Yes, he was.
No, he wasn't. Anthony Lima, you want to know what? You can follow me. You can tweet at me at the CLE Sports Guy. We'll openly fight about it. I welcome the challenge, and I think Ken Carmen will officiate. Anyways.
I'll jump in that fight, by the way. I still love Hoyer.
Okay, 2-on-1. I like a handicap match. Let's go. But Zack Wilson, I think, fits any scheme. That's my evaluation of him. He's a smart kid. He works his tail off. That's one of my bigger things I love about him. This kid, he transformed himself from an okay college quarterback, and they all talked about like how much he worked during the pandemic and everything at these camps, all this stuff just to get better. The work ethic is there. And would we ever think that Baker Mayfield was going to work originally? Now, Freddie Kitchens couldn't run offense. Was he really going to work in that Todd Haley-like offense? It's questionable if he fit the skill set, but he made it work. I kind of put Wilson that Baker Mayfield-like area where scheme doesn't freaking matter. What's more important is, can you be the best passer on the field? The answer with Zack Wilson is yes. So the more important question with the Jets is, get your freaking running back right. If you get that right, you take the pressure off Wilson, you limit what he has to do, and you can excel in the areas where he excels at by running plays after everyone's focusing on the running game.
I don't know who the Jets may add a running back at this point, but right now their number one running back is LaMichael Pirine, who will be a second-year back out of Florida. So it's interesting to see if they think he could potentially fit that scheme, but I'm with you. I mean, that offense goes through the running game, so it'll be interesting to see what they do with the running back position. Going down the line on your mock, just some things I'm noticing that stick out. The Washington football team. They are obviously looking for that long-term franchise quarterback. They added Ryan Fitzpatrick in free agency, but you have them going up for Trey Lance, who last week had his pro day at North Dakota State. Granted, it was indoors, but that kid put on a show. He showed off the arm strength, the way he was zipping the football. It looked really well. He's obviously a name that didn't get a lot of buzz because he only played in one game last year, but he's up there among the top quarterbacks in this draft. And you have the Washington football team making a trade with the Detroit Lions here, which Detroit could still be in the market for a quarterback, even though they have Jared Goff, but you have them moving up from 19 to 7, giving up a third and then a first and a third in 2022 to move up to get Trey Lance. How do you feel about Trey Lance's game?
Oh, man. He was QB2 going into the year, believe it or not. I had him right behind Trevor Lawrence. He falls to QB4 because he didn't play. So I didn't get to see how he developed in the last year, except for one game where, let's be honest, North Dakota State had 2 months to prepare for that game. And probably the campus was limited to begin with, so they probably got together a week or so before. Who knows if the team was out of shape or not, and did just enough to get ready for that game. And still, Trey Lance, even though he looked bad in the first half and they were down, carried him on his back and won the game. I believe it was Central Arkansas they beat. So that was impressive, first and foremost, to just in one game on the fly, everything's riding on it. Everyone's watching you. You play bad, but you pick it up and you carry your team to the win. One, that speaks highly to his character. Very highly to his character. His ball placement. Again, one of the biggest things I look for is ball placement. He's right there at the top. He's right there with Zack Wilson. And we saw in his pro day some of the dimes he was dropping. I'm just watching, go like, okay, you still got it. Like, you've been working. That's good. He does tend to throw the ball high, and he tends to get like loose hips and has the ball sail on him, which is why I note in here, he needs to go to a place where he's going to sit for a year. With Ryan Fitzpatrick now in Washington, now I feel even more confident that Washington may make a play to move up to get him. Now, In mock 3.0, I can tell you with because I've already started it, it's already changing, and we'll get to it probably later. But like already in 3.0, major changes across the board because now teams' needs are being filled. Now we're seeing how the board is filling out, and we're just sitting back now and figuring out what comes next. But for this one, God, that'd be a perfect fit for Trey Lance to go to Washington, learn from Fitzmagic, knowing that he's a raw prospect. He does not need to play this year. I mean, Fitzmagic is Fitzmagic. He will figure out a way to play well. And with that division, he's going to have him in the race. He's going to have him in the race. Trey Lance does not need to start in the star, which is what he needs.
Yeah, and I think Washington would be a perfect spot for him, especially now that they got Ryan Fitzpatrick as well as, correct me if I'm wrong, Taylor Heineke. Is that his name? The kid that started the playoff game?
Taylor Heineke.
Heineke. Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think that's a perfect spot. Two guys that, he can learn from, absorb all the knowledge, and then 2022, I mean, wherever, if Washington is the team that moves up for him, he can be unleashed. And I mean, if the talent is as good as advertised, Washington finds their long-term quarterback. I mean, it seems like a perfect fit, especially now with the Fitzpatrick signing. The one thing we didn't talk about in 1.0 was the cornerback position, and you had them going back-to-back off the board at 9 and 10. Caleb Farley, who did not play last year, he opted out of Virginia Tech, and then Patrick Surtain out of Alabama. How do you rank those two? Is it close? Obviously, Farley goes first in your mock. Is he your number one guy, or is Surtain your number one guy?
Farley's number one because he's more of a corner than Surtain is. Surtain is going to be more of a fit pick. There are people who think he's a safety. There are people who think he's a corner. The way the NFL works, versatility is always great. But I still value him as a corner. He was a shutdown corner for Alabama. He handled the best of the best. I don't know why people see him as a safety. Maybe it's an athletic thing, but still, why he played in the SEC? Don't overthink this. But Farley, in terms of just pure athletic talent and what he's done on paper, he has been a lockdown corner for Virginia Tech. And I think he's the best corner in this draft. I'd love him on the Browns if it was remotely possible. It's not, but man, him opposite Denzel Ward, shoot, no one's going to fly there. But yeah, at the end of the day, also in this one, we had Houston trading up with Denver. This is the new Watson trade scenario. We can get into that if you want, but still, I think for Houston, if they were to make this trade, they would rebuild the defense and start at cornerback because there is no edge rusher worth taking at 9. I'm sorry. Paye maybe, but still I'm questionable. For the Cowboys, Surtain fits beautifully there. They just lost Chidobe Awuzie to the Bengals in free agency. They need a corner. I fully expect them to be targeting a corner. Whoever's left there, I think they're just going to nab up. And I think on top of it, they might see him as a free safety. And quite honestly, with the way they have their corners set up, which they have a couple of decent ones, not like game changers, but they have a couple of good ones. And if they feel they need a center fielder free safety, that can be Patrick Surtain. He'd fit amazingly in that Dallas defense, providing an instant starter and an instant playmaker to a defense that was far too susceptible to the big play last year.
And as we're talking corner, the Bengals just got former Steeler and Browns target Mike Hilton in free agency, so he's off the board now.
Interesting.
You did mention Houston trading with this pick to get Caleb Farley. In your mock, you have them sending Deshaun Watson to Denver for the 9th pick, a 2021 third, a 2022 and 2023 first round picks, along with Drew Lock. Now, Drew Lock's a fascinating player because he got the chance to start last year, shown some flashes. It's not for sure he's the franchise guy. And now John Elway is not the man in charge anymore. Well, he is to a degree, but George Patton, the former Vikings personnel guy, is now the GM there, so he's running the show.
Are we sure it's not the World War II general?
It could be the World War II general.
It could be. It could be.
But he's not committed to Drew Lock, so you would think, I don't know how much Elway has say on this, but if Lock's not his guy, you would think the Broncos would be in the market just because they haven't had a franchise quarterback since Peyton Manning. It's unclear if Drew Lock can be that guy, but if Deshaun Watson's to be had, you would think a team like the Denver Broncos would certainly be in the hunt for him.
And for sure, this would be intriguing for Houston, because if you're Houston and you're trained Deshaun Watson, they don't have another quarterback on their roster that I can think of off the top of my head. Don't even research it. It's just, I'm 99% sure it's bad. So Drew Lock would be interesting to them because he's on his rookie deal, and it's a second round rookie deal. So he's got 2 more years on his deal because he was drafted, 2019? So 2019, 2020, 2 more years left on his deal. You have time to figure out in the next year, can you build around Drew Lock or can you not? Because if you can't, well then fine, it's going to be a cheap deal. You bring him in next year, maybe draft one the first round. Maybe you get Sam Howell and luck out. And have those two battle it out for the job, which Sam Howell would win, not even close. So it would be an intriguing deal for Houston to get number 9, get your corner, get a first rounder next year and the following year, and then you get that young QB that you can kind of test the waters with, almost like you're getting a free test drive on a quarterback with high upside and good arm talent for your past franchise quarterback.
For sure. I mean, you just you got time with Locke. You see what he's got. I mean, if you can get Deshaun Watson, go get Deshaun Watson because it's a clear upgrade. But obviously, you want to see more out of Drew Lock. I'm sure Fangio and company on the coaching staff will have a strong say in it as well. And if they like Lock, you would think that they would continue to go in that direction for sure. As we go down the board and we get to pick 26, let's focus on the Browns now at this point.
Yeah.
You have them trading down. Now, trading down has always been a fun discussion point leading into draft season. And I think at this point we're at pick 26. I think if you say, oh, the Browns should trade down here because the talent gap between 26 and whatever pick they move down to, it's you can get a guy worthwhile if you move down and gain more picks. And I'll be honest, when I go in the draft simulator, I'm usually trading back. I like getting more picks. I like having more stabs at it. That's what Sashi Brown, what they were talking about when they traded down all those times. They gained more picks, so they had more chances to acquire talent. It's just the name of the game. Here, you have them trading down with the New York Jets, who obviously in your mock take Zack Wilson. They trade Sam Darnold to the Bears, get pick 20, take Naji Harris. And here you have them moving number 34 and number 66 to Cleveland for 26. You have them taking Kadarius Toney. Take us through your mindset of why the Jets and the Browns could be an ideal trade partner and why Toney fits with the Jets here at this pick.
So now with Corey Davis to New York, this pick makes even more sense than I originally intended it to be. And don't forget, they get Jalen Mayfield as well at 23. So they have 4 first-round picks, completely revamping that entire offense and building it around Zack Wilson. First and foremost, that's what the Jets have to do to set themselves up with Zack Wilson and this offense. A guy like Jalen Mayfield, I think, can fit well in the zone scheme. He has good agility. He's versatile along the line. He could play guard. He could play tackle. I think he can do it all. He'd be a great addition for that line. Then you have Naji Harris, who I think is the right guy for this Jets team. Travis Etienne, I like him. I think Naji Harris, though, when he carried Alabama on his back, set himself apart at the end of last year and can be a bell cow. That's exactly what the Jets need. That is exactly what the Jets need. And then Kadarius Toney, explosive, versatile playmaker. You can have him line up next to Zack Wilson. in the shotgun. You can have him lined up in the slot. You can have him be the vertical outside threat. He can do it all. And this is exactly what a Mike McDaniel needs to run his offense, to have that Swiss Army knife that no one knows how to defend, because no one knew how to defend him at Florida, along with Kyle Pitts. That's why Kyle Trask was so good. I'm not here to knock Kyle Trask. Okay, yes, I totally am, because I think he's a bust. I think Kyle Trask, his numbers were extremely inflated because you have two of the biggest mismatches in all of college football on your offense in Tony and Pitts. Tony can do it all. This is a perfect opposite to Corey Davis, to take the pressure off of him, to allow him to be the big body physical receiver that he is. And he started to finally reach his potential last year in Tennessee. And I mean, I always was high on the kid. I'm glad that he's finally reaching. Put him with Tony, put him with Zack Wilson, these guys. Geez, the Jets could threaten the Dolphins next year in games. I'm not saying they're going to catch them in the division, or even the Bills. It's going to be fun to watch. For the Browns, it becomes more of, and if you look at the board at this point, we're looking at Kadarius Toney, which I thought about him to the Browns. I really did. I think he'd be perfect for Baker Mayfield. I thought about Greg Newsome here. He has flown up the boards, and the more you watch him, and yes, his 40 time kind of helped him too, but the more you watch him on tape, he's just a sticky corner. He doesn't get beat often, and that's sometimes all you need. He is good. There are some injury problems, but I think teams are overlooking that now. You have almost all the edges there at 26, which I felt was more ammunition to trade down. Because when you look at it nowadays, okay, if we look at mock 3.0, it's very hard for me to mock a trade down now with the way things have gone with the Ravens, especially now that they signed Kevin Zeitler. So I think they're going to look edge nowadays. So full disclosure, I think it's changing in 3.0. But at this time when I was going through it, the more and more I thought about it, I was like, all the edges are there. The Browns could trade down. 2 or 3 could be there at 34. The Jets need this wide receiver. They're only giving up really 66 for this pick. You want to know what? It makes all the sense in the world to do it. And if you're the Browns, you run to the podium and just say, we're trading. We're trading this pick to the Jets. Run back and go like, ha-ha, we got him this time. Because now you sit there with 34, 59, 66, 89, 91, 5 picks on day 2 with so many opportunities to fill the needs on your team. It's a no-brainer to do it.
Without a doubt. And as we look, we go down, and you wrote at the end of your mock draft, you had an ideal Browns day 2. Now, with this trade, they have 34, 59, 66, 89, and 91. I mean, 5 of the top 91 picks. I'm sure Andrew Berry would be jumping for joy at that point. So I'll let you have the floor again, and you talk about who do you think would be ideal targets in your mock draft with these picks, the 5 that I mentioned.
So I'm going to save Jason Owe for last because I really have a spiel with him. Hamza, I can't pronounce his last Nasrul Dean or whatever, however you pronounce it. I'm horrible with last names like that. Just a long last name that I'm not even going to try again. I want to, but I'm not. He's 6'3", 220, versatile safety, but he's great in the running game. Right now, the Browns have numerous cover safeties. They don't really have that athletic safety that can come up and put pressure on the passer. Now, you could say that could be a Sheldrick Redwine who's in the room right now. And the Browns could very well walk into next year with Delpit, Redwine, Johnson, and Harrison and be very, very happy. You walk in with Hamza here, that might be the best safety room in all of football, and it's not even close. I mean, he's physical, fast, and he just provides what you're missing. Though I think Ronnie Harrison was not used in the way that he excels in last year, and yet he still did a great job. Going down from 91 to 89, Elijah Moore, the more I watch him, I am in love.
I love this guy too.
some of the best route running ability in this draft. His explosiveness is perfect for what the Browns are running. Baker will love him in the slot. I mean, this guy, you could probably have him be the vertical threat, but I'm only thinking like, hey, you want to take some pressure off Jarvis Landry of playing in the slot? Get Elijah Moore, get him in the slot, let him beat everybody, and Baker go like, oh, look, over the middle, 5-yard pass. Oh, look, he's now 30 yards downfield because he's so fast. That's Elijah Moore for you. And he was so reliable at Ole Miss. He thrived there, and I think he'd be a great fit for the Browns and a guy who I'm highly targeting. Granted, he's undersized, but I really don't freaking care. I would love bigger size as a wide receiver, but he's too good. He's too good. You don't pass on him. 66, Ifantu Melifonwu out of Syracuse. Big, athletic corner. And he fits well in that zone coverage scheme that we're going to be running. He fits what Joe Woods wants. And that's as simple as that. He's not the best corner, but he's as talented as any of the others with as much upside as anyone. And at that size, that's another thing that you need in this cornerback room. You can't go with these 5'9" shrimpy corners. That's not the way the league is going. And when you're playing a team like, I hate to say it, the Bengals have T. Higgins, A.J. Green, these big physical receivers, you need a corner that is big and physical too, but also athletic enough to keep up with you. And that's Melifonwu. So I really like him. Jabril Cox is becoming my linebacker crush. Granted, there are some tackling issues, which I know Browns fans are going to go like, why? Why are you looking at this guy when he has tackling issues? I still think tackling can be taught. That's the big thing. You can't teach his pure athletic ability and natural skills in coverage against tight ends, which he does well. He was the FCS Defensive Player of the Year at North Dakota State, then transferred to LSU and had a solid year, showed he could play with the most athletic players in the game. I think he's very coachable. I think he's a guy that athletically this front office is going to like and is going to fit in very well with Jacob Phillips, with Sione Takitaki, with Mack Wilson, and provide yet another option, especially if they don't sign someone. If they sign a veteran, even better. It would just add to what we need, which is athletic linebackers. I honestly, at this point, do not care if they can tackle. All I care about is, can they fly all over the field? That is Jabril Cox, which is why I like him. He flies all over the place. He'll be a disruptive force in terms of his just pure athletic ability, which is another reason why I still am high on Jacob Phillips. And then number 34, Jason Owe. I need Browns fans to get used to this name. He is arguably the number one defensive end on my board. I can make a case for him over Paye. Yes, he had 0 sacks. I know you all look at the stupid, simplistic stats. You don't look at the film and realize Jason Owe was in the backfield every single play, it seemed like, just wrecking havoc when he didn't even have Micah Parsons to offset him. The entire Big Ten knew Jason Owe was coming, and they still couldn't get him out of the backfield. That tells me everything I need to know. If Micah Parsons was playing, I think Jason Owe would have had at least 5 sacks, probably 10, and Penn State would have won a couple more games. Sure, that's the effect of Micah Parsons, but it's also the effect of having another athletic, great defender that takes the pressure off of you. Now put him opposite of Myles Garrett and coach him up. No one's going to know what to do in about a year or two when these two are running at full, like, perfect sync with each other. It's going to arguably be the best tandem in the NFL. The guy is a great pass rusher, and he's only scratching the surface because he's only been playing a couple years. He's just figuring himself out, and yet he was still in the backfield without Micah Parsons. The upside is unfreaking real. And this is the guy that, like, even though I'm missing out on Trey Hendrickson, Carl Lawson, all these guys, cool, fine. Give me Jason Owen. I'm happy. I'm very, very happy. Give me a veteran to coach him up. Give me, I don't know, an Ingram. Give me an Ingram to teach this kid up and take him under his wing with Myles Garrett. This kid's going to be a stud at the next level if he goes to the right scenario. So Jason Owe is the guy at 34. I would love him. I even think he's in play at 26 right now. He would be a perfect fit in Cleveland.
Yeah, I think he would be too. I just like, and you Alex, you know, the narrative is already going to be started when people look, and you made the case because Michael Parsons wasn't there. Oh, the Browns just drafted an edge that had 0 sacks in his final season in college. And it's like, and people keep saying this, sacks aren't everything when you look at edge guys. Look at pressures, look at QB hits, go inside the numbers and look and see if this guy's going to be an impact guy. And Owa is one of those impact guys, and he would be a perfect fit in Cleveland. Like you said.
And I just saw this on Twitter. And now you're putting him in a room with Myles Garrett, potentially veteran, and Takk McKinley.
Yeah.
Like, oh my goodness. The rotations you could have with this team with 3 young, speedy pass rushers and maybe throw in a veteran. Oh God, Joe Woods isn't going to know what to do with all this talent. Good luck, everybody. Good luck guarding us. It's not going to end pretty for you, but good luck.
Right. I mean, the McKinley signing is a good signing by the Browns. 1 year, it's he could make up to $4 million, I guess, according to reports. But yeah, you add him into the room with Myles Garrett, they still could go out and get a Melvin Ingram or a Jadeveon Clowney or a Carlos Dunlap. And you just added Takk McKinley. You have Porter Gustin. You have Curtis Weaver. Like, that edge room is looking pretty good right now on paper rolling into camp if they add another veteran and a draft pick to go along with Clowney or with Garrett, McKinley, and others.
Yeah, I mean, it could be arguably among the best in football if you play this all out right. I think now with Takk McKinley, I think Gregory Rousseau enters the conversation if he makes it to 26 simply because of his versatility. I, for one, am not a fan, but, you know, it is what it is. But I think if you get a Jason Owe in here, oh, my goodness, it would just be – you could tell. I have a big draft crush on this guy right now. He's slowly turning into the number one guy I want. There is a different – I don't want to spoil who the number one guy at 26 is for everybody. That's an article coming soon. But anyways, I would love him at 26. I'm actually, you know what I'm going to say right now? I will sit here and I will do cartwheels if they take him at 26. And I'll be at the draft. So there you go.
Yeah, I feel like this would be a great pick for the Browns because I don't think safety is as much in play at 26 as it was prior to the John Johnson signing. I would say edge or even corner. I think those would be the routes they go unless they trade down, of course. But yeah, if Owa was the pick, I would be ecstatic as well.
Yeah, that seems to be the way we're trending right now. Mock 3.0 is definitely trending that way. Like I said in the first time we talked about this, mock these mocks I sit on for 3 weeks, and this one was the trickiest because free agency was right on the horizon. Again, check it out and just like record notes in terms of like make guesses of how I'm going to change it because I got crazy for the sake of being crazy because free agency was 2 days later. So I really didn't care at that point. But 3.0, I will say, just kind of a little bit of a tease. I don't get as crazy. I actually have a rough draft. It's already like set. It's the most sane mock draft I have ever written right now. It is very sane. I can tell you right now, hold on, let me pull it up real quick. I have 2 trades right now. Neither of them include Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson right now. And I honestly feel like I can sit back and say I'm fine with that because I think this is the most realistic mock draft I can come up with. And that's kind of where I stand right now. And no, it does not include the Browns at 26 making a trade. So I have the Browns staying at 26. So that's kind of where we are right now. And that's why I said at the end, we're going to find out the way this offseason's going. Teams are overspending clearly. Teams are filling their needs now. And now we're starting to get an idea of where teams are going to go in the draft. I think in talking with you, Jack, today that, hey, we know the Browns are probably looking at edge and corner. And like I said earlier in the show, they're sitting perfectly to address that. If they were, and here's one thing, I know people say we need a linebacker and Zaven Collins is great, and I love Zaven Collins. There is no guarantee Zaven Collins will be there at 26. I can see 5 teams before the Browns taking him. And I wouldn't object to it. The Browns are sitting perfectly for what they're addressing now and what they need to address later. So if you're a Browns fan, the way this free agency is gone, it's gone perfectly for you so far. You're sitting really pretty at 26.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, we're still about a month away, but the board is starting to become a lot clearer and exactly what the Browns, what we think they're going to do at 26. I mean, it's becoming quite clear, even with the start of free agency. And I just kind of hope, they let the board come to, I don't expect them to trade up, but I think the board will come to them and they will be in a great spot to where they can get exactly who they want, or even if they feel like they can move back and still get the guy they want. They're in a perfect spot, which is good because it'll be a long night that night to wait for what the Browns are going to do. But I feel like they are in a great position, and there's a ton of talent that should be there when they get to 26 that Andrew Berry will make the right choice.
Yeah, I have full confidence in Andrew Berry that he'll make the right decision because he's shown nothing more than his full trust to get behind him at this point. So I am all for it.
Without a doubt. Alex, as we wrap things up, we have an announcement to make, and you already made it you made it on your podcast, but we haven't officially announced it here on the DawgLand podcast. We are becoming a network. The DawgLand network is growing as we will have a new podcast to unveil in the month of April. Alex, go ahead and tell people what you and I have in the works currently.
So I teased this a month ago saying, I kind of want to retire after further review. I need a co-host. And I had a couple of great, people reach out. So if they're listening to this, I really appreciate you guys reaching out. And I had talked with one other seriously, and that didn't work out the way I planned. And then Jack reached out and we started talking and we were like, what do we want to do with this pod? Like, is it going to be a Browns? Is it going to be a sports? What is it going to be? And the more we talked about, we're like, I said, I just want to talk Browns. I just want bullshit about them, like have fun with this and, be more fans. And I know this podcast is more analysis, giving you the expert analysis. And I was like, you want to know what? Let's offer something that's an alternative for the DawgLand here. So Jack and I are very proud to announce that starting our first show is going to be March 31st. It is called Top Dogs. I don't know how you guys passed up on this name after Feeling Dangerous. I thank you. But how did nobody run with Top Gun, Top Dogs?
And you know what's funny, though? Not to cut you off. When we used to do our player of the game, we called it the top dog of the game. So it does coincide with the DawgLand podcast and the DawgLand network.
How has no one thought of this is the big question. Like,
I know.
I'm a Top Gun fan, and I'm like, I literally went through everywhere finding, is there a Top Dog Browns podcast? And I'm like, holy cow, there is. You fools. You are all fools. How did you let this happen? Thank you, though. Shout out to Andy Lytle. He actually made our logo, which, dude, Andy, I cannot say this enough. I gave him an idea, and he ran with it, and he freaking nailed it out of the freaking park. Thank you, Andy, you beautiful son of a gun. It is straight fire. We cannot wait to get you guys started with us on Top Dogs. I mean, to kind of give people an idea, and we actually are going to work on a trailer here probably in the next week to kind of give you guys an idea of what the show's going to be about. But like, we're going to be doing top 10s. We're going to be doing a 75th anniversary team. I know we've already discussed that. I think we're going to be fighting about that a lot.
Oh, it's going to be fun.
Who's our GM? Who's our GM?
Ooh, nobody from this era, unfortunately.
Honestly, I have an idea. I'm going to say this on air. I almost want to do like a draft. Like we draft our 75th anniversary team separately. Like we do alternating picks. And then we ask people who has the best 75th anniversary team. That
could be intriguing. I think I just seen someone do that though, so I don't want to steal their idea. So we'll come up with
darn
something.
It.
Yeah.
Darn it. Hey, I didn't even know that existed. I'm not stealing anything. It was just a good idea. Anyways, but yeah, the one that we're really most excited about, we have like, how many have we come up with? Like 6 or 7 scenarios?
There's been quite a few.
This is going to be something I've wanted to do for a long time, and I've almost done podcasts on it. Alternate Browns history. And one of them is just like, I have to show you the notes that I have on it. Like, it is ridiculously crazy on one of them. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but Browns fans are just going to be like, why are you torturing us? And it's just like, and you want to know what? It's for the sake of fun. And that's what this show is going to be about. We're going to be fun. And if you don't agree with us, hey, fine. You know what? It's more hot takes. I think we should do a hot take of the week, though.
I could come up with something.
Like let's trigger people every week. Hot take of the week: John Dorsey was the worst Brown since GM Brown since 1999. I'll fight you on it.
Oh my goodness!
I will die on this hill, damn it! Work me into a shoot. I don't care.
That's what we need to do: is trigger Browns fans even more.
We're the top dogs, so you know.
Yes, sir.
Hey, we're shooting people down to begin with. Pew, pew, pew.
No, but I am looking so forward to this podcast. Like Alex said, this is not going to be like this podcast, the DawgLand podcast. We have fun on this podcast, but I feel like we're going to have even a lot more fun with the top dogs.
Oh, God, we're going to have so much fun with this. So much fun. Can't wait. March 31st, it's the first show. We've locked that in. We're figuring out our schedule. Actually, after we record this pod, we're actually gonna schedule out the first day. So,
absolutely. So look forward to that in the coming weeks. Alex, when should we expect 3.0? Right around that time as well.
Probably a week or so after. Okay. I really want free agency to settle down. I want most of the names to be gone. I want the team needs to take shape. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Absolutely. So everybody go check out Mock Draft 2.0 over at the DawgLand.com. Go back and look at Mock Draft 1.0. Alex is doing some great work. I think he's got other stuff coming down the pipeline. Alex, go ahead and plug your Twitter, plug your podcast the other podcasts that you do as we get on out of here.
Follow me at BCLE Sports Guy. Subscribe to After Further Review. Actually, small announcement on that. The From the Land podcast series is actually eventually going to be moved to its own separate channel. So that won't happen for about another month or so. But check out our 3 interviews with Caitlin Marshall from Crunch Time with Caitlin, Andy Lytle from Not Same Old Browns podcast, Pat Tregoning of Possession Arrow and Time of Possession. And rumor has it our next guest is going to be Jack McCurry, I think.
I've heard of that guy.
Yeah, I've heard Jack is the next guest on From the Land. We cannot confirm or deny, but sources are telling me.
Definitely looking forward to sitting down and doing that podcast with you as well, Alex. Thank you for coming on, spending is the usual hour sit down that we have when we talk sports. As always, guys, follow me on Twitter at JackMcCurry08. You can follow the site at thedawgland.com or at the DawgLand on Twitter as well as Facebook. And as we get on out of here, until next time, go Browns.
Go Browns.